Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be alarmed. I'm early. I just wanted to test the feed. I did some rewiring. Wanted to kind of do the lighting, but we can do a little chit chat. I'll really get into it at the top of the hour at 3 p.m. Pacific time. And but I just wanted to make sure that everything was proper. There's a little bit of strange lighting. I still have to rewire my selfie ring here. But we'll just looks like it's going well. Hi, Corky, Lynn Riedel. I can pop this out here. It's going to be a good talk, promise you. And an open start, yeah. Yeah, maybe I should do that more often, keep people on their toes and keep guessing. It's kind of like when I was teaching in real space and time, you get a little early and you get in there. I like to get in there about 10 minutes early before the class starts, get my computer hooked up and make sure all the connections are right and unpack my microphone, right? And I always wanted to start exactly on time, but sometimes I'd be able to wire it all up and get the projector warmed up and the screen. It's always a minor miracle when it all comes together. But sometimes I would finish early, and so I get a chance to chit chat with people, while we're waiting for the start of the class. So anyway, we can do that. Hi, Biomancer. Hey, yeah, I won't give you a real name. I know who you are. Thank you for your long autobiographical statement. You're on your way, brother. And hey, Kathy Sue. Well, your name's there, so I guess I can say it out loud. Hi, Kathy. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your support. I see lots of Patreons there, and your contributions are I'm going to pay you back in kind. You helped me buy this book, which is a real mind blower. I can hardly wait to get into it, because we're not going to do the same old, with the usual suspects, right? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on YouTube that'll handle that. I'm going to present you a perspective that's going to be similar, but also new. And I'm hopeful that it'll help us get out of this situation we're in. But it's picking up. Hi, Horse Sense 222. Yeah, I like coming on a little earlier because I can acknowledge people and see what you're up to. Thank you for getting in place so quickly. You don't want to miss one single precious word. And I was also concerned that recently my feed wasn't working. The program kept on skipping, so I had to reload the entire program. So I went more direct into my computer rather than using, just for those of you who want to do live streams. And I don't know if that's the source of the problem, but I kind of figured it out, I think. I immediately defaulted to conspiracy theory, thinking that the NSA was monitoring everything here. And that's what they want you to think. They don't have that much that kind of power, at least at the level that I operate in, right? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been nice chatting with you. Thank you very much. You might be alarmed that you're catching me in midstream here, but don't worry. I just kind of got my rig together and started up, and we're enjoying a conversation, albeit a live chat. And by the way, we're going to go audio. I just can hardly wait to do a live two-way audio stream with you all. But anyway, that's going on. It's 3:00. So now we're going to get into the heart of the matter. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And it is April 15, year 2021. I am Professor Hamamoto. And today's talk I titled Human Potential Movement and Biocorporate Management System. And you notice that, we're talking about people here in the human potential movement who are word magicians, right? That is really, I think, the source of their strength, using symbols, which, is words, metaphors, images, and communicating these in a particularly forceful manner to individuals and to large groups and even to complete societies. And through history, they've been amazingly effective. They have been instrumental for good and for bad in shaping human civilization. So, on that basis alone, this is well worth examining, not just for me, who's somewhat of a specialist. I don't claim to be a sociologist of cults or religions or the human potential movement, but as I'll speak to this topic, you'll see that I've been looking at it for quite a long time. And it's not just about me, it's about you. Many of you have been through these processes, and I should tell you right now, I don't cast aspersions on your past experiences. All experiences, good, bad, or ugly, are worthwhile. So long as you're living and breathing, you're never out of the game. And you're one step closer, I believe, to becoming who you're supposed to be. And that's really up to you and any number of external factors, not all of them good, by the way. So we're going to try to get rid of the negative external factors. And I'll allude to them, or maybe I'll just call them out during the course of this talk. And we're going to just keep the good stuff for ourselves. And that's a challenge. That's why I guess they call it life. It is a challenge. And unfortunately, there are people that want to exploit that vulnerability that we all share. Let's see the chat. Okay, I had accidentally deleted the chat. Okay, let me, please don't mind me ignoring you for a moment, but let me get into the meat and potatoes here. I class, maybe unfairly so, new religions, right? This is in the description, new religions, however we want to define it. I'm not going to go into the tall weeds and define all these terms. I'm just going to use them in sort of a colloquial fashion. This is not a sociology course. And cults, and I always, use these in quotation marks. And I'm lumping it all together in the human potential movement because the important point I'm going to make here is that all of these, even the specific entities, someone's already mentioned the Sylvan learning systems, and Scientology always comes up, and Scientology has almost become a red herring. It's kind of like you default to it, and that's one of the purposes of this talk here, is to warn us away from I guess, the operant conditioning. Soon as we mention NXIVM, oh yeah, Keith Raniere, Oprah, blah blah blah, Biden, blah, and you know what? That's really one of the weaknesses of supposed independent media, and it makes you wonder whether they're not contracted to put these people up there so that we can be distracted emotionally, intellectually, and from the perspective of our valuable time to just rant and rave about them, right? So I'm doing less and less of that. I kind of monitor what independent media is doing, but I'm not getting wrapped up into it because you know what? A lot of that itself bears a close similarity to cult behavior, to human potential movement. So I have to check myself as well. And because believe me, I'm susceptible to this as anybody else. And you're susceptible to it at the institutional level, but you're also susceptible to it on a personal level, on an interpersonal level. And that is probably the most difficult to detect. It's probably the most difficult to disentangle yourself from because the interpersonal bonds, the emotional bonds are there. They're very tight. And in giving you that brief introduction therein lies the struggle. Therein lies the strength, really, of these human potential movements, because it's not just a matter of you saying, well, I'm going to just withdraw. I'm not going to pay my $250, whatever it is they charge for these weekends. It's probably a lot more. I'm going from 1970 prices, right? I don't know how much that is today, because I watched a documentary on the the EST seminars. They were raking in tons of money in the 70s and 80s, and they've changed their model. In fact, EST is no longer even owned supposedly by Werner Erhard, which I'll talk about today as we go on. And again, I'm not going to talk specifically about Werner Erhard as such, or even EST. I'm not really interested in these specific movements. Again, it's bait. It's a distraction. And I'm more interested in what these movements and what these individuals truly mean. And I want to understand who these individuals really work for. Because as we've seen time and time again, when you think you have identified the top miscreant, you find there's someone behind them, right? So let's use it for instance. We see Bill Gates, he's put out to us. And then, people do the research, and a lot of what they call research, I call Wikipedia hunting. And they check it out, and they look at his biography, and, he's related to Bill Gates Sr. And, the story, he was head of Planned Parenthood. But then if you do some more looking, you see that he's related to people like George Soros, or the Wizard of Omaha, right? The guy that likes to look like your uncle, right? Warren Buffett. But more recently, we found out that most of these people are really centered around the top banana, who happens to be a medical doctor by the name of Anthony Fauci. Who's behind him, though? Well, that remains to be seen. We'll find out. And each time, by the way, the mainstream press and even the independent press likes to put these people out as, oh, we've arrived. We finally figured out the Wizard of Oz. We're there. But you're never really there. And of course, they mention the family, the usual families, right? The Roth children and whoever else, the house of such and such, you name it, and on it goes. And of course, there are people who say, well, there's off-planet entities that are ultimately behind it. But really, asking these questions, as fun as they are, that's not really getting us out of our predicament, which is to avoid mass annihilation. And that's why I think studying these cultural, social, and political organizations, they are political organizations. They're presented as self-improvement and psychology-based movements, behavioral movements, but at bottom, they're political entities, at least the way I conceive them, because politics is the exertion of power. Social power, cultural power, yes, certainly economic power, but it's the exercise of power in society. And make no mistake about it, these entities exert a great deal of power at the highest reaches of state level institutions. And I'll get into that. I'm kind of speaking in abstractions at this point. So watch to the very end. Even if you believe yourself to be strong-willed and having, just an ironclad consciousness and not emotionally vulnerable, you believe yourself to be immune to mass psychology or the mass psyops. Okay, let's say you are. Let's say you're one of those rare people, and I don't count myself amongst you. I bow to your superior awareness. But I'm not a dupe either. I study dupeology. I'm interested in gangsters. I've been looking at as you'll see in a moment, I've been looking at the way they operate for decades now, right? Formally and informally. And I come across them personally, which I'll share. I'm going to tell a lot of stories on myself today and make it interesting, because this is what, when I started reading, because I've been looking at this biography for a while, but in reading it, I started thinking about my own situation. So I'm going to share some of these crazy stories. Anyway, everybody is affected, whether you think you're susceptible to this. Look at, any number of people. I know any number of people who have swallowed lock, stock, the whole hook, right? That started year 2020, right? The plandemic, great term, right? we could use their word magic against them. So we'll call it pandemic. And we don't even have to unpack that now. See, it works both ways. You know what I mean? These guys think they run a game on us. If we understand the game, it's going to have less impact on us. And then we can really get about our business of being human. So, yeah, I think it was Dr. Judy Mikovits who came with that term. I salute Judy Mikovits for that and much, much more. And it doesn't really matter to me that your father was so-and-so and mother was here and you worked here and there. I go with the proof in the pudding, just like the question was put to me yesterday. Well, what about those people in Laurel Canyon and all their fathers work for the National Security State and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? I tip my hat to them because they were able to overcome them and produce great art. People like David Crosby, people like Frank Zappa, people like Jim Morrison. The proof is in the pudding. So again, I want to help us, those of us who are independent researchers, to overcome this prejudice, this sort of idea. It's kind of a genetic fallacy, right? That in informal terms, that is that you are where these threads are connected to, right? Not necessarily, yeah, in part, but these are people who rebelled against that system and came out much better for it and shared their discoveries with us. Another good example, and I've talked about her at length before, is Joan Baez. I was listening to one of her albums as I was prepping here. Yes, I was listening to it as background music. I admit it. I should have been just listening to it full attention, but I'm going to go back to it. And I was just struck by its beauty. It came out in 1997. I go, how did I miss that? I missed over 20 years of some really important music. And it preceded, I believe, her album where she talks about her own experience. So oppressive, and it's quite compelling. Go back to the earlier talk if you want more details about it. But she overcame those circumstances and still doing great art. She even had a concert at her 75th birthday with other great artists that she influenced, right? So the message here is that you can overcome this, but you have to be cognizant what's going on. And you don't have to believe me. I only know part of the picture. I'm very modest about my own level of analytical intelligence. I have some, and I'm sharing what I can with you in the short time that I have. So we are all affected by it. So pay close attention, and you might find out that you're being played even without even knowing it. Whenever I fall into the trap of saying, yeah, well, I know the score. Yeah, I've heard that. I've been there, done that. I have to check myself and say, yeah, that's typically when you fall into the trap, when you think you got it wired, right? That's when the monkey falls out of the tree. The monkey is just going like, he thinks he's the expert, and climbing branches and going way up there and getting them bananas. But as there's a saying in Japanese, says even a monkey falls out of the tree every once in a while. And I always remember, I have to remind myself of that. So why today's talk on human centered? Here, I'm going to tell some stories on myself, okay? First of all, I was contacted last year in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. I'll call it the pandemic. The stream hasn't seemed to be ended, and I'm still getting a audio feed according to the LED meter, so I'll say pandemic. I was contacted by a management consultant based in far-off Tokyo, Japan. And what she wanted to do is to set me up one-on-one for these encounters with her corporate clients. Fine, great. She's a management consultant. She's American by nationality, from what I can tell. Her degrees, and she sent me her resume. I think she got a master's degree or a PhD or something, graduate degree at a top-notch, I can't remember exactly where it was from, but, top-notch U.S. university, and I think she might have a master's degree. I'm not really sure, but she had the academic bona fides, right? And we corresponded before she made this offer. And I think she probably saw one of these shows or saw me on some talk show somewhere. So I said, "Hey, cool, that sounds kind of interesting." And as her business had been adversely affected by pandemic 2020, she was trying to find new business opportunities, and one of them was to put her Japanese-speaking clients who were learning management techniques. They were all working for a large corporation, and large corporations loom large in what I'm about to tell you here. And this consultant scored a large contract with this company. She was going to help their employees become more productive, well, they don't say obedient, but more amenable to the corporate culture. Some of you who work in corporations, you've heard that phrase, right? Corporate culture. What that means is you're going to do stuff our way, but we're going to pretend that you came up with it. Because really, I'll just cut to the chase. It's about control. It's about control over you, about your input, about now we're finding out the content of your thought, your transactions, who you know, and even your genetic makeup, right? It's going very, very deep. So you can see where I'm taking this, but first things first. So I said, yeah, that's fine. Let's do it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm being played. She's, I don't know how much she's making, per hour as a corporate consultant, but I'm not seeing a single N or dollar for that matter from it. And my time's valuable. My time's useful. Whenever I get these invitations to speak, like from, community groups, I usually do it for free because they don't have any money. But some institution, some corporation that wants my services to give a talk or something, they're going to pay for it because they pay their attorneys, X amount of dollars, or their corporate consultants. I should get the same consideration because what I have to say is worth a good deal, not just to me, but to the people I'm speaking with. I had a group of psychiatrists, right? MDs from Stanford University hospitals said, we want you, Professor Hamamoto, to give a talk to our group. And I said, oh, yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. And said, but, since you're in the area, we can't pay you because Stanford's about 125, 50 miles away from me. But the traffic's horrible. But since you're in the area, it's going to be no problem for you to drive over here, won't it? That's the assumption. And, we don't have a budget, so we can't offer you not even an honorarium. So I wrote back politely and I said, yeah, I'd like to do it, but here's my fee. And I can't remember what it was, but it was large enough. And I said, I value my professional services just like you do, and I expect to be treated at the same level. Anyway, that's a long way of saying that here's a person who's in corporate management who had been through all this training, who was using these principles in order to manipulate me and get something for free. So that not only would she be getting a freebie for her corporate client, she wanted one-on-one sessions. We were going to do a Skype or Zoom, whatever it was. I think it was Skype back then. And not only that, but it was going to also develop her credibility in the corporation. Yeah, I can bring in this University of California professor to this and all that. So I don't like being pimped, and I don't like to pimp other people as well. And I didn't put it in those vulgar terms as her. I just said, here's my fee. If you can meet it, then we can talk. Anyway, okay, here's really the point behind the story. In doing so, and the reason why I even engaged her at a deeper level before she hit me with the business proposition, which was going to be all about her, is that she said, well, I was product of the EST program, EST. So do you remember this guy named Werner Erhard? And she went on and on. She provided me some really good inside information and even intel there that I scrupulously noted, right? And I was shocked. I said, God, I didn't even realize that Werner Erhard was even alive, let alone that his EST, right, Erner's seminars, Erhard seminars training. I think that's what it stands for. By the way, supposedly doesn't have a relationship with. He supposedly sold it. When I say supposedly, I don't go with the legend because I watched this documentary in prepping for this talk today about Werner Erhard as of 2007, 2009, something like that. And it goes into it how he eased out of the business there. So anyway, I got something out of this. I found out, oh my gosh, this guy that I heard about when I was an undergraduate back in the 70s, he's still around. That's remarkable. And sure enough, I started checking into it. And you know what? Not only is he around, but he is bigger than ever. I was shocked to learn that Werner Erhard had moved into the highest reaches of academia, especially in the area of business management. He has a close relationship to the Harvard Business School, for example. And this happened years ago. He was shown walking by the complex at Harvard Business School in Cambridge. I assume it's in Cambridge. I've never been there. It might be in Boston, for all I know, or the neighboring town. But anyway, it says Harvard. The shield's there's a business school, and then Wharton School of Business, which they're kind of like 1 and 2, right? Which is at the University of Pennsylvania. Donald Trump went to Wharton. He was one of the top students there with an MBA, right? He's got connections there, and there were other people that I looked. And I'm not going to bore you with the details. Look at his website, and he'll provide you in his curriculum vitae, or his resume, as we like to call it, all the different connections he has with a full range of academic institutions, and that's what he does now. And to his credit, or maybe it raises question marks, I'm kind of mixed on it, he has commissioned and has written academic papers that empirically validate, or at least purport to empirically validate through studies, validate his principles of management. And he's got personal testimonials that you can't believe. And these are people who are operating at the highest level of communication sciences, right? These are supposedly the experts, and he's teaching them. Ladies and gentlemen, that was quite a revelation to me. So I said, oh, I'm going to dig into this one. This is going to be really, really, and I'm going to share with you some of my preliminary findings here, and you're going to be quite pleased with what I'm sharing with you here today. And then, okay, so that was that, and that came to mind. This management consultant came to mind when someone called onto the George Webb show yesterday and said, "Hey, my father was one of the co-founders of EST, along with Werner Erhard." I said, "Oh, really? Can you tell me his name?" And he gave me his name, wrote it down. I haven't looked it up yet, but I can trace that back. So anyway, it's kind of in the air, and looking back on it, I've talked about a lot of very similar types of organization and entities prior to this particular talk, right? That. So it's very much, maybe that's why it's in the air. And maybe that's why this was raised in this conversation, because this person had heard me allude to Aston Werner Erhard in a previous talk. So I said, great. So let me take the opportunity then to dig deeper into this field, because it's on people's minds and it's part of their personal history. So I thought, okay, it's about time that I really dig into this, right, and try to help myself understand what it means in the larger scheme of what I call bio-corporate control, bio-corporate management system, because it's the managerial class at the highest level of corporate rule that have embraced Werner Erhard. I won't say EST anymore, because he goes under a different rubric. I think it's called learning systems or something. He found out that education is the best front of all, right? I mean, gosh, you've been learning about people like Fauchier over at the University of Wisconsin, and that guy at Harvard who ran that lab was getting $250,000 fees, I think, per month from the Chinese government, and he had all the goodies. He had his own lab, right? Lieber isn't his name, right? You learned about Joichi Ito over at the Media Lab at MIT. Okay, I can give you example after example. If you're in higher education, man. And by the way, as part of the redress and reparations process that we're going to have to take these people, the university is going to have to undergo a radical reevaluation. not just by the court of public opinion, but by the civil courts and other entities for crimes against humanity. And what do I mean by that in passing? Well, there's a historical connection between what they're doing now and previous attempts that used human potential teasers or psychology, entrainment, you can call it manipulation, mass manipulation, in order to get their programs of human extermination up across to large numbers of people, to millions of people, and many of them here in the United States of America. In fact, many of the ideas, as most of you know, of the Third Reich originated in the United States of America and Britain, which were supposedly their enemies, right? So there's a historical precedent where I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm kind of giving you a preview of why this is an important topic to deal with. So someone called and said, okay, it's about time. I have a personal history as well of going through these corporate management training regimens, right? While I was trying to find my way, my niche in academia, because it wasn't, well, for reasons that I'll get into in a moment.